I'm Allie Buchman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you today how to use some of our faceted round trios. They are a 6mm faceted bead that actually have 3 holes in them, and we're going to use those to make this Starlight Bracelet. The Starlight Bracelet also incorporates some key-up beads and also some 2-hole bar beads, along with some standard seed beads. To use this, the materials that I'm using are a wildfire beading thread, and it's 0.006, and I'm using the green color because of my color selection of my beads. It's going to hide the thread the best. I also have my thread zap 2 here, and that's my favorite thread zap to use in order to cut the thread. I also have some super new glue here that I'll be working with. And I have some tulip needles. I'm going to be using 2 needles. You can either use tulip or pony brand. I'm just kind of testing out the tulip needles. So far I still like the pony brand better, but these are size 11 and we're going to be using 2 of them for our project. If you need any of these materials, you can check them out on the left-hand side here. There'll be links to them that you can get them online. Or you can always shop in our bead stores, print out a list underneath the details page here, or underneath the little details box, there's a show more, and that'll have a list of all the materials that were used in the project. In addition to our faceted round trios, which I'm going to be using the jet bronze color, I'm also going to be highlighting some key-ups on the bracelet. For the key-ups, I decided to go bold, and I'm going with the lava red color of the key-up beads. In addition to the key-ups and the faceted round trios, I'm also going to be using the 2-hole bars, and these are in the dark bronze color. I wanted them to match a little bit to my faceted round trios because I liked kind of the look of that I had in my little sample piece, which was a lot longer and it had a lot more going on, but this is the type that I really settled on and really loved. In addition to those specialty beads, I'm using 15-0s, and I've decided to use 2 colors. I'm using the galvanized dark gold, and then I'm also using the matte opaque red in the 15-0. And I'm going to use the 2 colors just to kind of highlight and to add a little bit of a pop to the outer edge. In addition to that, I'll use a clasp, and I'm just going to use a cup button to do that. And then also we're going to be working on our bead mat. To get started, what I want you to do is take 5 feet of your wildfire beading thread and put a needle on either end of that thread. So I've got all of my little piles of beads here, and just to show you, I usually put the tubes right above there just to kind of keep track of it. That way also if I need to dump any out, they're right there, and then when I need to clean up, they're right there as well. I have 2 needles on my 5-foot piece of thread, and I have my cup button in my Ruby Picasso color that I'm going to be using that really kind of highlights nicely the red as well as the brown. I'm actually going to start with my clasp. Whenever you use 2 needles, it's usually easiest to start with your clasp, and that's the advantage to 2 needles that you have. You don't get done your project and then need to add it after the fact. So this one here we're going to add first. To add our cup button in place, what we're actually going to do is I'm going to decorate the middle of it by putting 3 of my 15-0 seed beads on one of my needles. Then I'm going to pick up my cup button with a needle going through each hole of the cup button, and I'm going to let it fall down to the base of my project. You can see it's a little decorated in there. Could also use the red color, that's up to you. And what I'm going to do now is just create a little space before I actually get into my design. That way the button has a little bit more room to move around. To do so, I'm just going to take my needles and I'm going to put 3 of my 11-0 seed or 15-0 seed beads on either needle. Once you have them on both, you're going to let them drop down next to your clasp. Once we have that, what you're going to want to do is actually start our design now. The design incorporates all of the beads at once, so we're using the faceted round trios and the key-ups at the same time. The faceted round trios actually have 3 holes right along the center here. The reason that they have 3 rather than 2 is purely for design element. That center hole was necessary in order for the manufacturers to actually facet the bead. It had to have a center hole in order to put on the bar in order to enter basically the faceting machine. So we're actually going to ignore the center hole. You won't see it at all as we're working with it, and it'll actually be hidden. So anytime I say to grab the faceted round trio, you're actually going to be going into the top or the bottom hole, ignoring that middle. First thing we're going to do for our pattern is we are going to add 2 more of our 15-0s on either side. And then we're going to take our needles through a faceted round trio. One needle is going to go through from the right to the left, and the other needle is going to go from the left to the right and come out the other side. You want to make sure when you're coming out that you don't pick up any of the 15-0 seed beads. I have those on nice and tight there. Now that I'm coming out either side of my faceted round trio, I'm going to build the actual side of the project. The side of the project is always going to be the same, with a bead coming out the sides basically, and then our 2-hole bar. So I'm going to pick up one 15-0, a 2-hole bar, and a 15-0. Everything I do on the right needle, I'm also going to do on the left. I'll let that drop down next to my faceted round trio, and then I'm going to pick up the top hole of the faceted round trio and bring my needles out either side. So again, doing that crisscross, one through the right and one through the left. What that's going to do then is pull those beads right to the side of my faceted round trio. So you can see they're almost like little wings there. Once I'm out of the faceted round trio, I get to add my key-ups, but before doing that, I want to put a 15-0 on each side. Let those drop down, and we're going to pick up our key-up. When you're picking up your key-up, you want to have it so that the key-up you're actually going through the front of the key-up, and your needle is exiting towards the back. When you look at the key-up, they have holes that are going straight through, drilled here, one and then the other. I want my needle coming out that back end that has the 2 holes. So in order to do that, you're just going to pick up either side of the hole that's at the front peak, coming out the back side. After my key-up, one of my 2-hole bars go on, and then I'm going to pick up 3 of those red 15-0s. Letting that all drop down. My needle is going to go back through the other side of the 2-hole bar, through the key-up, and come out. That's going to force those 3 15-0s to sit right on the back of the 2-hole bar. And when I'm coming out the key-up here, I want to add a 15-0 and let that drop. I've done that on the right side. Now I'm also going to do it on the left. So again, we have our 15-0 already on there. We're going to put on a key-up, going through the front, coming out the back, put on a bar, and 3 of our red 15-0s. We're going to hold that all in place by bringing our needle back through that 2-hole bar and the other hole of the key-up. Once we have that, you want to give a nice tight pull, get those beads down in there, and I'm going to add a 15-0. Now we're going to get ready to repeat our pattern of our faceted round trios. So it's a little bit difficult to see here because they want to turn out, and that's where we're going to come back down the line and connect them with some more 15-0s. But once you're out here, you're going to pick up another round trio, and we're going to do exactly what we did here. First hole of the round trio, 1 needle from right to left, the other from left to right. Pull and drop that down into your project. And then we're going to get, sorry I got cut off there, but after we pull that down into our project, we are going to start with that side pattern again. So it's 1 15-0, 1 bar, 1 15-0 on both needles. Once we have those on, we're going from the bottom hole to the top hole of the faceted round trio with the needle that's on the right going through from right to left, and the needle that's on the left going through from left to right. Again, making sure you're not picking up any of those 15-0s. Give nice tight pulls so that way you don't see any exterior thread, and just kind of push the thread above the seed beads. Once you have that in there, you're going to go back and add your key op again. I'll do it on one side to show you. 15-0 goes on, a key op goes on from the front towards the back, 2-hold bar, and 3 15-0s. Back through the bar and back through the key op, and a 15-0 goes on. Now that I have that on the right hand side, I'll do it on the left hand side. And then we're going to go back again and add our faceted round trio. So it's going to be that same pattern over and over. This bracelet does not have any shrinkage, so you're going to make it the whole way until the bracelet end touches right at the clasp closure here. And then I'll get ready to make the loop and then come back down and join the sides. So just to show you as I'm progressing here, I'm doing that same pattern as I come out to the side, adding my key op, and it can be a little bit hard at first to kind of keep track of where your key ops are and which side the hole is, but keep in mind that there's that back side and the point. And if you go through the point, you know that you're coming out the correct area when you can see both holes in the back. It also is easy to realize because you need it to line up with that 2-hold bar. Once you have the 2-hold bar and the 3 seed beads on to decorate the sides of it, you're coming back through the key op towards the middle and adding a gold 11-0 or 15-0. You can do this whole design with 11-0s as well. I did that over here with some round duos. So if you have round duos, you can switch out the 15-0s for 11-0s and the spacing will be the same. But I decided after doing it that I liked the look better of the faceted round trios. Once you have your key ops on and in place, then it's time again to get back to your your faceted round trio. We also have regular round trios that don't have a facet if you don't want that sparkle in the bracelet. Once you're done always with the key ops, one thing that you want to make sure is that you do give the thread a nice tug because you don't want any space in there created. So after each one you can kind of give the thread a tug and make sure that you're nice and close to the previous round trio. Again, then I'm going to put my round trio on, one needle going from left to right and one going from right to left. That locks that whole design in, and then I get back to adding my 2-hold bars on the side with a 15-0 in the middle. So again, I'm just continuing to build on that design and create my whole baseline. So I finished here adding all of my key ops and my round duos. So if you have any of those left on your bead mat, you can kind of push them aside, put them back in the bags or the tubes. And I'm also done at this point with my red seed beads as well as my 2-hold bars. So all I'm going to be doing now is making my loop for my button to sit in. And then once I'm done that, I'm going to come back the whole project and kind of add in my extra 15-0s, and that's going to keep the key ops from flipping on me. When I'm coming out of the project here, I'm going to be adding 28 of my 15-0 seed beads in order to accommodate my loop. But to get to that point, I want to actually create a little V. So I'm going to use 3 of my 15-0 seed beads. I'm coming out one of the ends of my faceted round trios, and I'm going to put those on and let them drop. On the other side here, I'm going to put on 2 of my 15-0s and let those drop. And then what I'm going to do is go through the third 15-0 on the first side in the opposite direction. So the thread's coming out one side, I'm going with my needle in that same side, and that's going to create a little V right after my faceted round trio. After that V, then I'm going to create the loop for my clasp, And again, I'm just going to put on a bunch of my 15 OC beads in my galvanized dark gold color. So I'm going to pick up one of my needles. It doesn't matter which one, your right or your left. If you don't have an exact amount of thread left, you can pick up whichever one has more. And I'm going to put all of my 15 O's on here. If you want to, you can also do a peyote stitch loop. If you have a clasp closure that you're adding, a pewter toggle or gold filled toggle, you can go ahead and just use some wire protectors and attach the clasp now. I use the buttons a lot because I designed them, but also because it makes it really easy to put on and off, and you don't have to worry about metal allergies for people. So that makes it a little bit nicer. Once I have my loop finished, I'm going to reinforce it with the other thread. And you want your loop, if you're using a different style button, to be big enough to accommodate your button that it goes through, but you don't want it so big that it's going to fall off. Once I have that loop created, I'm going to join back with that first one of my 15 O's that the thread was coming out of, and I'm going to take my thread from one side to the other to create my loop. Picking up the needle now on the other side, I'm going to reinforce that loop. So I'm going to take my thread and needle back through that entire loop of 15 O's that I just made. You're not going to worry if you see a lot of extra thread right now. We're going to pull that down as soon as we're done reinforcing. I have all these beads reinforced here. And then you're going to go back through that same 15 O that the other thread is coming out of in the opposite direction. That's going to pull those two threads to opposite sides and allow us to then come back down the project. When I'm coming back down the project, what I'm going to be doing is adding onto basically the 3 red 15 O's. I'm going to be adding with my gold seed bead, and we're going to be adding 3 beads in between each of our sets of 3 red seed beads and our bar. So it's just going to be 3, then go through the bar, 3, go for the seed beads. To get to there, I need to get from my outer section here to my actual bar. To do that, I'm going to pick up 5 of my 15 O seed beads on each needle. You're going to let those rest, and we're going to pick up, well, I'm sorry, 6, and we're going to pick up the outer bar. Do that on one side, and then we're going to do it on the other also. And it's just going to decorate out there, and just, it's really functional just to get out to that bar. If you don't like that look, you can actually omit the bar and not have it on there for the last one and just use 3 seed beads instead. And then you'll come and you'll start actually with the outer edge of the key up. So I'm going through the 2-hole bar there, and those 6 seed beads create that little arching effect. And now again, I'm going to use 3 of my 15 O's, and then I'm going to go through all 3 of my red beads on top of my key ups. And you can see it's going to start to gather in. Add 3 more 15 O's and go through the 2-hole bar through the outer hole. So coming back down is really simple. It's just 3 15 O's at a time, and then either through the 3 red that are already there or through the bar. And I'm just going to continue that pattern of adding 3 15 O's down my right side and down my left side, and you can see it pulls it in just a tiny little bit. It's going to create that nice little rounded edge, and I'm going to go a couple more passes down the left, start on the right, switch back to left, right. I do that so the tension remains the same throughout the project. So I'm right at the end here of my bracelet, and I really like how the color has turned out. It almost has that kind of vintage Christmas color look to it. The red is a little bit deeper than it looks on camera. But I'm right here at the end, and I'm going to repeat what I did at the beginning, creating that kind of backstitched 6V look. So what I'm going to do here on the side is I'm going to pick up, when I'm coming out of my last of my 2-hole bars, I'm going to pick up 6 of my 15-0s. I'm doing this with my right needle, letting them drop down to the 2-hold bar. Get those needles untwisted. And then what I'm going to do is bring it back right before my cut button, going through the last bead before the cut button, up the cut button, and I'm basically reinforcing here. Coming out the top of the cut button, going through the other 2 15-0s, and coming down the other side. Oh, my needle fell off, so I'll leave that off. And then on the other side, I'm going to do the same thing. Add my 6 15-0s. And the needle coming off is one thing that I've been struggling with the tulip needles versus the pony brand needles. The eyes of the tulips are a little bit bigger, even in equivalent sizes, so my thread's slipping out, so that's one thing to keep in mind. I'm going to go up through my bead here in the back, just like I did on the other side, reinforcing as well, coming down the other side, and down through that first seed bead. What I'm going to do then is take my thread and needle down that initial first row, so down through 4 more 11-0 seed beads, or 15-0 seed beads there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going through my faceted round duo bead all the way over to the other side. I'm going to go up, actually I'm going to leave it right there. I'm going to put my needle back on, and I'm going to tie my knot right there rather than right at the top near the clasp. So I'll put my needle back onto my thread here. And again, the tulip needles are, I find, easier to thread, but that's also because that eye is a lot bigger, which my thread, as I get towards the end, keeps slipping out of my needle even if I pinch back. So taking this thread then and going back down the line. And once my threads get to the same place, all I'm going to do is knot the threads together. Take my needles off. Knot the threads here. I'll do a square right or square knot right over left and then left over right, or you can see what I do generally is switch which hand I'm holding my thread in. That does the same thing as a square knot without having to think if you went over or under. Once I have about 3 knots done, I'm going to give a nice tight pull to those knots. I'll go in with my super new glue. So I took that super new glue there and just dropped right on the thread. What you want to make sure is that you're gluing actually the thread and not the bead. You don't want that white residue that some of the super glues can get on to go on and actually be visible on the bead. So just get your thread. And then I've taken off the ends of the thread here with my thread burner. And all I'm going to do is go in and then burn down those little edges now that it's dried. And that also is going to fuse those ends together just the tiniest little bit. And the goal there is also that you don't want to see the knot anywhere, so you don't want to be able to see that. Once you have that done, your bracelet is finished, and your Starlight bracelet is about 1/4 wide, and I used right about 14 of my faceted round duo or faceted round trio beads. You can see it's big on me, but I have a smaller wrist, so this is going to be about a 7 1/4 size wrist that this bracelet is going to come out to be. So in the faceted round trio pack, if you purchase it, you actually get 50 of them, so you'll have enough to do at least 3 bracelets, just to give you guys an idea. And key up wise, 1 container will get you 2 bracelets, so you can think about that as you're thinking about which colors you want to do. Hopefully you have some fun with all of these new shapes, our faceted round trios and the key-ups, kind of playing on that circle versus triangle and getting those different shapes in there and get a chance to make this Starlight bracelet. If you do need any materials, you can shop with us at PotomacBeads.com. Right underneath this video is a description which will have the links to the products, or back at the beginning of the video. You can also print out or make a list of the materials that you need and go to your local Potomac bead company. You can find the locations of those at PotomacBeads.com, and we're happy to help you there. If you like this video and like other designs, you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to get regular updates when we do videos like this, as well as post things on new products and new designs. So thanks everyone for watching, and have fun beading and using all these fun new check shapes.